Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausan Pereira. The death of DMK patriarch Muthuvel Karunanidhi leaves another void in the Dravidian tapestry, which is still not recovered from the death of former Chief Minister and AIADMK supremo J Jayalalithaa. Karunanidhi, to the end, remained a people's politician, attuned to their hopes and aspirations, either in dealing with the centre or while sparring with Jayalalitha's AIADMK. In and out of power during the nearly 5 decades he captained DMK, Kalaignar, as he was respectfully called, mentored a league of political proteges and spawned powerful enemies. Despite passing on the mantle to his son MK Stalin in his sunset years, Karunanidhi remained the leading light of the DMK. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyse what next for the Dravidian movement. Joining me on the program today are Ganapati Subramaniam, Chief of Bureau, Pudhiya Thalaimurai; Sachidananda Murthy, Resident Editor, The Week; and Neerja Chowdhury, Senior Journalist. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Ganapati, I'd like to begin with you first, of course. Two stalwart leaders as far as the Dravidian movement is concerned, no longer with us. What next for the Dravidian movement? What next for Dravidian politics?
The field is wide open now. There are possibilities of the DMK facing internal problems. At the same time, AIADMK already has internal problems which they are trying to resolve now. And there are two players waiting in the wings, Rajinikanth and Kamal Haasan, ready to enter the field. So what will be the alignment in the post-Kalaignar, post-Jayalalithaa era? That is going to be the big question before the two big parties. One possibility is Kamal Haasan making an alliance with Congress and DMK, which are already working together. Then another possibility that is being talked about is Rajinikanth allying with the AIADMK on the one hand and BJP on the other hand. But how these combinations will work is something to be seen. Till now it was Jayalalithaa versus MGR. Now Jayalalithaa is gone and Karunanidhi is also gone now. So therefore, the fight between the AIADMK and DMK may now see new kind of formations, new kind of alliances coming to work. And BJP is very keen to get a toehold in Tamil Nadu. How will they do it? On their own, can they do it? So therefore, these alliances will have an important role. At the same time, Stalin has to now establish himself. Unless he wins a couple of elections and proves that he will carry on with the same fighting spirit of his father, there are going to be a lot of internal problems from within the family that he will face. So therefore, next by-elections in a couple of assembly constituencies and next year Lok Sabha election going to be very keenly fought, not only in terms of pre-poll alliances but also in terms of post-poll possibilities for supporting a central government which may or may not have a brutal majority like they have now.
Indeed. Sachidananda Murthy, as far as Dravidian politics is concerned, the death of M. Karunanidhi, is it the end of the Dravidian ideology, do you believe?
Yeah, so the Dravidian ideology which was, came to the fore when Annadurai came to power in 1967 for the first time, and then after that it has only been Dravidian parties there. I don't think it will end with him, because it's also an ideology which has got adjusted to globalization, technology and everything, but then that identity politics is very much ingrained in the psyche of the Tamil Nadu voters, because as long as you have a strong big government and your identity is very important there, so it won't go, but then it will manifest in different forms. Because one thing is, yes, because of his long tenure as the head of the DMK, Karunanidhi crystallized and sharpened that ideology. He was responsible for whether it was the social justice, whether the linguistic change from Sanskritized Tamil to highly local Tamil, which was very, very pure in its Dravidian aspect, or the cultural reformation that took place, or all other things, they will be there, they will manifest themselves. But yes, there is no single torchbearer as he was, because even MGR after the break in the DMK also changed his ideology to counter Karunanidhi's ideology. So Karunanidhi remained, especially after the death of Pereira, he was seen, but then Karunanidhi himself started becoming superstitious, though he was supposed to be an atheist and all that. So that way there are a lot of things, but the Dravidian ideology would continue. In which forms it will manifest and which are the prominent members for that, we have to see it now. What happened? One of the strong proponents of Dravidian ideology has been Vaiko. But because of the huge banner-like presence of Karunanidhi, Vaiko never flourished in Tamil Nadu. Now will he get a chance? Because everybody expects that Stalin may not have the same kind of force which his father had. In that case, a very good orator like Vaiko, will he become the torchbearer of the Dravidian ideology? We have to see that.
Neerja Chaudhary, any names really coming to your mind as far as who the torchbearer really, as far as the Dravidian ideology is concerned? You know, is it going to be someone who's tried and tested like a Stalin or someone else maybe, or do you believe that there's a new face that is going to emerge out of all of this?
Of course, one can never say everything is in such a state of flux with new players, as he said, you know, Rajnikant, Kamal Hassan, and then there are the old parties. You know, it's very strange. Mr. Karunanidhi has been ill for a very, very long time. He's not been active in politics. The mantle had been passed down to his son, MK Stalin. Alagiri, who was a contender also for that position, has been very quiet. The Maran brothers also very quiet. Kanimodi's, you know, made her peace with her brother MK Stalin. Now you can say, you know, how will things play out after his actual going? That's when you feel that the person has gone and politics and life is actually very different. So I would say the succession was clearer in DMK. It wasn't clear in AIADMK after Jayalalitha's death. So you have the party actually split AIADMK three ways. The parties Painaswamy, OPS, Paneerselvam, and Shashikala group and her nephew Dinakaran now winning from Jayalalitha's seat very convincingly in the by-election. So what will happen to AIADMK also in the months to come remains to be seen. So it is a melting pot, and yet if you were to ask me, it's advantage MK Stalin. DMK had done well even last time, almost almost there, just behind AIADMK. Now with his father going, the sympathy factor will also be there and clearer lines of succession. So I have a feeling that next time around it's going to be MK Stalin led DMK.
So everyone's going to move towards Stalin and probably try and woo him in the days to come, is what Neerja Chaudhary is suggesting. Ganapati, AIADMK of course needs to get its act together. Do you believe in the days to come, you know, some crucial by-elections coming up, and then there's the Lok Sabha election as well, which is less than a year away from now. So DMK in a better position at the moment?
Of course, as Neerja ji said, AIADMK being split into two distinct groups is a big advantage for Stalin. But behind the scenes, efforts are being made to bring Dinakaran back into the AIADMK fold, because AIADMK people, legislators and members of parliament feel that when they have to face the election next time, whenever it may be the by-election from Tirupparankunram or from the seat that is now vacated by Mr. Karunanidhi's demise. So they will have to go to the voters and get votes. That is the time when they will feel the need for Dinakaran. Right now they may have the power, they may have the support of the MLAs and the MPs, but the votes, Dinakaran will be an important factor in that. If he unites, then the challenge for Stalin gets stronger. On the other side, if they don't unite and they stay divided, Stalin has a clear advantage. But in selection of candidates, his family members would also like to have a say. They will pressurize him, and also especially in the southern districts, his brother Alagiri, who may be completely sidelined now, and he has been keeping quiet because of Karunanidhi. Now he may like to raise his voice, push his weight. Then how will Stalin respond? So then there may be fissures inside. Those are all disadvantages for Stalin. So therefore advantages and disadvantages are there. And then how the new players fan out. because the experience with new players is very different as compared to the established players. For example, nobody thought Kejriwal would do so well in Delhi. At the same time, he did very poorly in many states. He did well in Punjab. So, a new player like Rajinikanth, for example, may suddenly become an important factor. So, whether he will be on Stalin's side or whether he will be against Stalin, all those factors will decide. But the crucial point will be how Stalin manages to consolidate the position given to him by his father and take it forward. That will be very important.
Interesting times ahead as far as Tamil Nadu politics is concerned, would you say, Sachidananda Murthy?
Yeah, but then there are also certain clarities here. One clarity is that Stalin will not be pro-BJP. He will be anti-BJP. I mean, you could see that even today, the whole turn-up was of mainly from the anti-BJP front. Of course, the Prime Minister was there, but otherwise it was a big show of anti-BJP leadership. So, and Stalin will be the nucleus for that. Now, how will he fashion that? Because compared to his father's time, there are more players now in the field. He has to maybe bring back PMK and MDMK back into the DMK front fold, and then also he has to negotiate with Kamala Hassan. I don't think he will negotiate much with Rajinikanth, because so that way there's one clarity there. Similarly, the AIADMK and Rajinikanth will be anti-DMK and anti-Congress. So in terms of because the next big election, though, as Ganapati mentioned about the crucial by-elections, I mean, Karunanidhi's seat is unlikely to be a hot contest, but yes, the other one is. But Lok Sabha election, how will Stalin stitch a alliance with like his father? I remember in 1996, Karunanidhi was on a weak wicket because Jayalalithaa had become Chief Minister for the first time and her term was coming to an end. And when a group broke away from the Congress, Karunanidhi gave them one extra seat in Tamil Nadu. Out of 39, he gave 20 seats to Tamil Manila Congress. He contested 19. So he would be very flexible in his approach, and so Stalin will have to stitch together a pan-Tamil Nadu alliance of maybe disparate forces, but bring that in. So that clarity, some clarities are still there. Then the other issues is how will he, as Ganapati rightly said, how will he handle Alagiri? Alagiri suddenly came up like a meteor. He was nowhere, because whereas Stalin has been in politics since the 70s, he had undergone imprisonment during the emergency and all that. So whereas Stalin suddenly came like a meteor, and then everybody hailed him as a southern strongman, that he controls the 9 to 11 districts and not a leaf will move. Then Jayalalithaa moved like a storm in 2014. He said, I'll send Alagiri and his people to jail and all that. And then suddenly the whole Alagiri, this thing collapsed. Now, will he be able to rebuild from that ruin? So that's an imponderable. So and Kanimoli will not be, Kanimoli will be like the Maran family. She'll be used more for Delhi politics rather than having a substantial say at the state level. This is how it looks like within the DMK. Of course, AIADMK, can Shashikala bring these people together, because even now Palaniswamy, the Chief Minister, owes his position to Shashikala. So he knows that she controls more, whereas Paneerselvam has been much more anti-Shashikala. So
right.
how will these, and so first time even a prison becomes very important in Indian politics, whether the prison of Shashikala or the prison of Lalu Prasad Yadav.
Prison politics is something that we can talk about as well, but not today. We'll keep that for another day. Nija Chaudhary, talking about Delhi and talking about playing a substantial role in Delhi, Karunanidhi, whether he was with the NDA, whether he was with the UPA, has always ensured that Tamil Nadu politics has been well represented at the centre. Is that going to continue to happen now without Jayalalithaa and Karunanidhi to steer their ships there in Tamil Nadu?
I see no reason why not. Another question is, does the DMK's alliance with the Congress continue? Sachi feels it will. Many people feel it will. Suppose DMK wins in Tamil Nadu, but in Delhi, the NDA wins. Does the DMK stay with the Congress and the opposition, or can they gravitate towards an NDA-led centre? Those are question marks. We don't know. But before the elections, I also agree that the likelihood of their continuing in a coalition arrangement with the Congress is more. Though, you know, in many meetings that several meetings, I won't say many, several meetings that the opposition has held, the DMK presence has been very marginal, you know, they've not been major players. As has been Mamata Banerjee, some of the others have been major players. So there are the non-aligned parties, the Anna DMK, the BJD, the TRS, who may keep their options open for what happens after the elections before they take their position. The question mark is on DMK. Will they also be in that category, because they may not need the Congress as far as an alliance is concerned? And as Sachi says, will Stalin go for MDMK and Vaiko and smaller Dalit parties, and build a sort of grand alliance, and so can do away with the Congress and keep his options open? Or will he continue with the Congress and be slightly more inclined towards the UPA or the Congress side than the three parties I've talked about, which will, I think, continue to be neutral till after the election? That is to be watched very carefully.
Indeed, it is something that is to be watched very carefully. And taking the discussion forward, Ganapathy Subramaniam, politicians from Tamil Nadu, of course, have this larger-than-life persona. There's a lot of hero worshipping that takes place as far as politicians are concerned. Is Karunanidhi the last of that real brand of leaders, do you believe?
Of course, there is no match for Kamaraj, Annadurai, MG Ramachandran, Jayalalithaa, and now Karunanidhi. That totally different class. Now we don't have leaders like that, because people used to travel for hours, walk miles to listen to Karunanidhi speak or Annadurai address a public meeting, and people admired Kamaraj for his integrity, his honesty. There was no single allegation of any corruption during his period. So those are the kind of leaders who are not made anymore. And I don't think anybody else has that kind of a fan following. But there is one real possibility, that is Rajinikanth, because the kind of following that he has in the movies, the fans, really huge crowds and crowds of fans, whenever his movie is released or whenever there is anything related to Rajinikanth, the kind of crowd that gathers, if the same thing is translated into the political scenario, then he will be a mass-based leader.
Do you believe the Rajinikanth of 1990s is the same with the Rajinikanth of 2018?
Of course, from the result of his movies, you can't say that, because some of his recent movies have not been super hits like they used to be earlier. But still, if there is one name among the current crop who is known all over and who is so popular and people are crazy about him, that is Rajinikanth. Kamala Hassan is several notches lower. And not to speak about, say, the current Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Edappadi Palanichami or O. Panneerselvam. Nobody can match the charisma of those leaders. But there is always a possibility of a new one coming up. We never know. The one example is this, somebody who can gather masses. There may be somebody else who may come up tomorrow.
Indeed. Okay. Maybe there will be a leader who will crop up like that. Yeah.
Quick thing on this. Tamil Nadu politics has been a very heady mix of film plus mass politics.
Yes.
These have been mass leaders. And they all, scriptwriter Karunanidhi, actor MGR, Jayalalithaa actor. So that has added to this huge kind of, charisma, the larger than life profile that these leaders have had.
Indeed, and I think that's something that we're going to miss as far as Tamil Nadu politics is concerned going forward, unless, of course, there is a new leader who emerges from the film fraternity and, takes Tamil Nadu politics by storm. Closing comments now from all my guests, starting with you, Mr. Murthy. National parties have been out of power, have been out of contention in Tamil Nadu for over 5 decades now. Does this probably open the door a little bit for the national parties in Tamil Nadu, do you believe?
No, because both the BJP and the Congress do not have a issue or an ideology or a person who can appeal across the state. So they have a problem still. Though, I mean, the DMK and AIADMK look very weakened now after the deaths of Jayalalithaa and Karunanidhi, but then there is no way, because the Congress has shrunk, it is also split, GK Vasan moved away, but more than that, the Congress is still in such of a ideology at the national level, and at the state level, it has just there are no issues also. Similarly, the ideology of the BJP has not caught the imagination in Tamil Nadu, and there is no leader who can translate that ideology into votes.
Is that because the BJP is looked at as a Hindi party in Tamil Nadu? Is that a problem, do you think?
Yes, Hindi party, a Brahminical party, an anti-Dravidian and anti-social justice party. It has these baggages to carry in that state because its leaders also took, its ideologues and leaders took extremely rightist positions, which were at odds with the Dravidian philosophy, Dravidian rhetoric. So now to change that, it's very difficult for them, and they don't have a leader who can communicate to the masses on this.
So, Neeraj Chaudhary, how do you see the national parties really trying to get a stronghold in Tamil Nadu? Because clearly they wouldn't want to neglect Tamil Nadu at this point in time. 39 seats coming out of there. Would they like to build on some alliances within the party itself, try and ally with some of the smaller parties in Tamil Nadu? Or how do you see them going ahead?
I don't see any will in the Congress to revive as a major party again in Tamil Nadu, having lost elections in 67. After that, so it is happy to be a junior partner with the DMK, piggybacking. The BJP started to think of a strategy and thought that it could piggyback Rajnikant. Rajnikant took a long time to launch his formation, and I'm not sure whether he's convinced about that. It also tried after Jayalalitha's death to piggyback AIADMK. I don't think that's worked very successfully. So certainly it will also try for an alliance with AIADMK, maybe Rajnikant, depending on how the situation evolves. But as mainstream parties, I don't see in the foreseeable future them reviving in Tamil Nadu. Of course, as BJP, I agree with Sachi, it's seen as a Hindi and Hindu party. Hindu is equal to upper caste. Yeah. So that is a disadvantage that the BJP has, which is otherwise a resurgent force in many other states.
So that's a tag that they'll have to shed at least for Tamil Nadu if they have to ensure that they have to do something in Tamil Nadu. Quick closing comment from you, Ganapathy Subramaniam, before I close the program. The future really of Tamil Nadu politics, where do you see it going?
Yeah. From the national perspective, what Mr. Sachidananda Murthy mentioned is very important. BJP is not going to get a handshake from the DMK. That is what the signal that's so far coming from Stalin indicates. At the same time, other people like Kamal Hassan, Vaiko, they are also not inclined to ally with the BJP because they think allying with BJP is a handicap because of the situation explained by Mr. Sachidananda Murthy. Therefore, the BJP has to either rope in Rajnikant or rope in DMK or rope in both. Only then they can manage a good fight. So in such a scenario, what will be the national impact of the election outcome in Tamil Nadu? It may get diminished because as Neeraj said earlier, what happens if the NDA wins in the Lok Sabha elections and Tamil Nadu goes with DMK? Then the DMK will have to remain a silent spectator without any major role in Delhi. Because Jayalalithaa won so many MPs like last time, left only 2 seats for the opposition, but she could not get any role in the central government. The only position I see is the deputy Lok Sabha speaker's position. Otherwise, AIADMK could not manage anything. And all the MPs and MLAs won by AIADMK are thanks to Jayalalithaa. Similarly, all the MLAs won by DMK are thanks to Karunanidhi. So when the next election approaches, it will be a totally new game. Without Jayalalithaa and without Karunanidhi, how will they fight? So that will shape the politics of Tamil Nadu and how it links up to the national politics.
It's going to be a new game is what Ganapathy is suggesting. I've got about 30 seconds left, so a quick closing comment from you as well. Do you believe that the smaller parties now going forward from Tamil Nadu, Vaiko's party and the others as well are going to play a bigger role?
Yes, I have a feeling that the one man who has been even silent today has been Vijaykanth of DMDK. Vijaykanth was a big white hope for Modi in the 2014 elections. He said that with him we are going to capture Tamil Nadu and all that. But then NDA won 2 seats there in 2014 Lok Sabha despite Modi's charisma and all that. So, but then Vijaykanth has been silent. Now, because he has a certain Dravidian appeal, though limited in its sense, will he be able to revive now after 3-4 years of hibernation? That has to be seen.
I see Ms. Chaudhary making notes there, so I'm going to let you close the show for us with your concluding
No, I
remark.
think, as I say, if the scene is open, that DMK has advantage because it is a cadre base, and look at the cadre coming out. Of course, DMK is also cadre based, but divided 3-way, I would say today. And the smaller parties, where will they gravitate? They will certainly gravitate one way or another. So that is the kind of scenario we're looking at today.
All right. On that note, then we'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Ganapathy Subramaniam, Sachidananda Murthy and Neerja Chaudhary, thank you so much for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's it on this edition of The Big Picture. See you again next time.